There's only one way to find out the true answer. We have to take a submarine and look.
Mike contacted me about a year ago, and he said, would you like to go diving in the Dead Sea?
After his initial shock, laughter, obviously thinking he had a nutter on the phone, he said,
the Red Sea? I've always wanted to go to the Red Sea. And he said, no, the Dead Sea. I said, I don't think anyone's ever dove in the Dead Sea. And he said, that's right.
I think he said, I'll get back to you. I'm sure started to check me out to see if I wasn't completely mad.
I said, well, there must be reasons why no one's ever dove there, so yeah, I'd like to go. That sounds pretty neat, so let's do it.
The mini-submarine Delta holds 2 people, a pilot and an observer.
Hey, it looks pretty good. All right, looks like it survived the trip.
The Delta has made over 5,000 dives and has a 100% safety record. But as it leaves Jerusalem, it faces its most testing mission, one which doesn't have the automatic blessing of the powers that be.
It's okay, a couple of nutters deciding we want to take a submarine to the bottom of the Dead Sea, but there are governments involved and there is money involved, and neither were easily persuaded.
As the Delta approaches the Dead Sea, a military checkpoint reminds the mission that it's not just underwater hazards they face. There are political and security obstacles to get around. After 2 years of negotiation with the Israelis, Jordanians and Palestinians, Sanders has only been granted a limited amount of time for diving. Every moment and every dive will be critical. At over 1,300 feet below sea level, the Dead Sea is the lowest point on Earth. The seawater is more than 30% salt, with minerals so concentrated that practically nothing can live in it. The Dead Sea embalms and encases everything that enters it in a crust of salt. This buildup on a ship's hull took only 2 weeks to form. The minerals make the water much heavier. As a result, under the surface, the pressure is between 2 and 3 times that of normal water. This has dangerous implications for the Delta. Over the coming week, as the submarine dives to the bottom of the sea, its hull will be tested right to the limit. Could it also be tested to destruction? It's a deadly gamble, but there'll be only one way to find out.
Both feet together.
There you go.
You can see him right here. We're going to lunch. We'll see you a little later. Better let him out.
How do you like it?
It's all right.
Yeah.
Does it get hotter than that?
Well, it depends on the water temperature. It should be cooler than it is in there now. This
That's
thing's been
warmer.
heating up in the sun. Yeah, it's kind of like an oven.
No, you don't want to stay in there at that temperature very long.
No, no.
And there's no air either, is there?
There will be air.
Yeah.
We'll circulate air when it's
So
running.
that's the worst it's going to get.
Absolutely.
Already 1 day behind schedule, Mike has another headache. Delta normally dives with backup from some of the most advanced research ships in the world. Here at the Dead Sea, former Israeli SAS captain Moti Gonen and his men are having to prepare the submarine support barge out of parts cannibalized from anything at hand. Untested, these primitive fittings will have to operate perfectly if the submarine has any hope of surviving these heavy and hostile waters. The final member to join the dive team is scientist Zvi Ben Avraham. As director of the Dead Sea Research Center, Zvi has studied these waters for more than 20 years and knows more about their strange qualities than anyone else.
One of the unique properties of the Dead Sea is that it hardly have any oxygen. And because you have no oxygen, you have no corrosion, no rust, no nothing. And this is a very good example. Just look on this pile, just under the water level. Very clean, and it can stay clean for tens of years. Above the water, you see how much it's rusty. So, in short, you want to keep something, put it in the Dead Sea.
The Dead Sea has a unique attraction for tourists. Because the water contains 10 times more salt than normal seawater, it provides an almost surreal buoyancy. In fact, it is almost impossible for a swimmer to sink. Fun for the bathers, but for a vessel whose entire purpose is to go beneath the waves, something of a disadvantage.
The biggest part about diving in the Dead Sea, really, for us, that's different than where we usually dive, is the high salinity. And that's gonna mean that we're gonna have to add about 1,300 pounds of lead to the submarine. The first time we put the sub underwater, what we'll do is we'll leave it attached to the crane, and we'll lower it into the water, and we'll see how the sub wants to sink while it's still connected to the crane. That way it won't sink down and not be able to come back up.
In spite of an extra load of over 1,000 pounds of lead, the submarine barely sinks enough to cover the deck.
It's too light. We've got to get more weight in it.
Needs a lot of lead. What?
That was close. I didn't have breakfast.
We'll just keep putting it in until it sinks.
Got over 1,200 pounds in it now.
Word quickly gets around the bobbing bathers of a new attraction, the submarine that refuses to sink.
You can see the salt on it already glistening.
It's taking a lot more weight than we thought it would.
Finally, the delta sinks under the water.
Yeah, so it's about 100 pounds difference between salt water and fresh water. Here, we're putting in over 1,300 pounds to get it under. That's a heck of a difference.
With the buoyancy set, Rich feels confident about setting the sub free from the safety of the barge for the first time. Gingerly, the sub makes a tour of the support vessel.
It's like a little toy boat in the water. But it will do amazing things.
We've been worried for months whether this would work or not, and we proved that we can dive in the Dead Sea. The visibility's not bad. We can see good enough. It should be all right. And most of it's flat enough, the sonar should work well. So if there's targets out there, I think we'll find them.
Now we can find the truth. Well, whatever it is. Nothing there? Okay, there's nothing there. If there are two tells in Sodom and Gomorrah there, okay. If we find wrecks, wonderful. If we don't find anything, that's the truth. That's the truth too. And it's important that people know always the truth.